All right, so we are starting. Good evening and a warm welcome to all the dignitaries present here. I'm Ankita from Clernet, assigned as a session assistant to ensure a seamless experience. Clernet stands as India's most relied upon digital platform, offering a multitude of enriching services exclusively for doctors. It is with great pride that Clernet is a digital partner for this event, hosted by National Neonatology Forum, and the topic of today's session is NNF Shine Big One Central Zone. Let's begin today's session, for which I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Mala ma'am to take over to you, ma'am. Kindly proceed with your talk.
Okay, a very good evening to all the viewers. How many participants can you see, Sangeeta? Only 5 participants as of now.
Just a minute,
No,
ma'am.
no.
I'm checking.
Ma'am,
No,
that
this
they are
is panelist
faculty.
link, ma'am.
We are only faculty at 6. Let me tell my own junior residents to join.
25, ma'am, has joined.
Acha, okay. Then that's a good number.
That's yeah.
Okay.
Ask all of them to join, ma'am, because other
I'm
join.
asking all to join.
Yeah.
Again. Please join at once. हेलो शालिनी, लोगों से बोलो कि ज्वाइन करें भैया, अपने तो कम से कम ज्वाइन करें, है ना? ओके, प्लीज आस्क देम टू.
I think we can start, ma'am.
All right.
Mala ma'am.
Okay. So a very, very good evening to all the faculty who are on board, and especially to all the junior residents, the JR ones, who are the backbone of this project, because your backbone has to be strengthened to be able to save more neonates in the country. So we begin the first online session today, and the topics that we are going to discuss today are care of the normal newborn and thermal control. So let's begin. First slide, please. So let's break the ice by starting with a quiz. Okay, so we're going to show you some pictures. I mean, pictures of neonates that you see very often, type of neonates that you see very often. Let's see if you make a diagnosis. Next, please. Here, what's this scary looking rash like? What do you think is happening to this neonate? Something to be scared about? Measles? Chickenpox? Urticaria? What? Can you identify this rash? It began on the face and then it came on the trunk. It appeared on day 2 or 3. Any guesses? So this, yeah.
No,
Pratima, you can ask.
can we see the chat, Anjali?
Chat we can see.
Ankita,
Uh,
can we see the chat? If somebody typing in the chat box.
Is somebody answering?
Ma'am, the thing is like this is the attendance will be answering in our portal page, ma'am. So whatever questions or any answers we will be receiving, we have to paste in the chat box, ma'am.
so
That
please
is
do that.
fine,
Yeah.
but can you see any answers in the chat box?
Not yet, ma'am.
So
Okay.
all students are urged and requested to
Participate.
participate actively, because Dr. Mala हर रोज नहीं मिलेंगी आपसे बात करने के लिए. आज मिल रही है मैडम, इनसे जितना पूछ
Hey,
सकते हैं
I'm
पूछ
so
लीजिए.
excited to talk to you.
I'm so
to
excited.
interact with
Yeah.
you. हाँ, तो
Please,
क्या है
please.
ये scary looking thing? क्या है ये? What's happening? The mother is very scared. देखिए माता निकल आई बच्चे के. What is this? Baby is 2 days old. And the rash began from the face and then it came on to the trunk. Any answers? No. So let's move on to give the answer. So next slide, please. So this is erythema toxicum. Okay, erythema neonatorum or erythema toxicum. And this looks scary, but it's an innocuous thing. It appears on day 2 or 3 and then it disappears in another 2-3 days. You don't have to do anything about it. Doesn't require any treatment at all. And why it happens, people don't know. Let's see the next picture then. Here, another baby with these funny looking small pustule like things. Huh? What do you think is the diagnosis? Near the nose, near the mouth, here, white things here. What are these? Any answers? Anybody is answering? Is anybody answering? No? Next. So this is milia. These yellow white spots on the nose and the face, this is because of retention of sebum. And you've seen many babies with these small spots, yellow white spots, and they are milia, and you don't have to do anything about them. You don't need any antibiotics, you don't need to apply any betadine, you don't have to do anything. It will resolve on its own. Next, please. Next. What's this? Again, the mother is terrified seeing this red thing here in the eye. बच्चे की आंख में खून उतर आया शी में से. So what is this? What is this red crescent that you see? Any answers? Anybody answering? No? Okay, next slide. These are subconjunctival hemorrhages, semilunar arcs, subconjunctival hemorrhages, which can happen in babies during the birth process, and you don't have to do anything about it. You don't have to put any eye drops. You don't have to worry about it. It will disappear on its own with time. So are you all awake after a few questions? Let us now begin with the real topic for today. Now, during your postnatal rounds, you find that there is a baby whose temperature is 36 degrees Celsius. Now, what are you going to do? You know that the normal temperature is 36.5 to 37.5, let's say. Now, this one is 36. So, what are you going to do? Quickly shift him to the NICU, put him under a radiant warmer, begin IV fluids, investigate. What else will you do? What will you do? Will you shift him to the NICU, give him fluids and provide further care in the NICU? Yes or no? Anybody saying yes? The answer is no. Okay, this child is in cold stress. He's just half a degree less than the normal temperature. But if you don't take care of this cold stress, his condition could become worse. So you will ask the mother to put the child in skin to skin care, cover the child properly, and then keep monitoring the temperature and see whether the temperature has become okay or not after 1 hour. So let's begin with topic number 1. So the first topic is care of a normal newborn. Next, please. So what are we going to learn? How to provide care at birth, screen babies for any visible congenital birth defects, and provide postnatal care for normal babies. So we are talking about normal babies. Next, please. So at birth, you're all aware, it's a very crucial time because there is transition which is happening. The baby that was inside the mother's womb is now exposed. He is breathing on his own. His lungs have expanded and he is now independent. So what do you have to do? First of all, you have to see that he is breathing well. Now we're talking about a normal baby. So we are assuming that he is breathing well. There is no problem with transition. From intrauterine, he's come to extrauterine, he's breathing well. So what do you have to do? You have to anticipate any problems that may occur during this transition. So if the problems will arise, you will have to resuscitate the baby. But here we're talking of a normal baby. So most of the babies they don't require any sort of resuscitation. Out of 100, 90 will need no sort of, no type of resuscitation, and they are stabilized, and then they'll be transferred to the postnatal ward. Next, please. So, you need a trained healthcare worker in the neonatal resuscitation, for neonatal resuscitation, in case it is required. Now, you can see what's happening to this little baby in the picture. He's just being wrapped up with cling wrap. It's a preterm baby, and to keep him warm, even without drying him, you can just wrap him up in this cling wrap so as to keep him warm. You don't want the baby to become cold. So the baby who doesn't need any resuscitation at the time of birth, he should be placed prone on the mother's chest and abdomen in skin to skin contact to enjoy the first golden hour of his life in close proximity to his mother's chest and abdomen. And during this period of 1 hour, when he will be in close skin to skin contact with his mother, you will dry him and you will cover him, and his within this 1 hour you will begin breastfeeding, and you will also cut the cord. But you will not cut the cord immediately. You will cut the cord only after waiting for at least 1 minute. Next, please. So routine care for a baby who is delivered. He is normal, his transition is swift and good, he is breathing, and so quickly you will take him, and you will, as you can see in picture number 1, you will just put him on the mother's chest and abdomen and let him be there. Then you will want to dry him. So you will mop dry him. As you can see, this lady is trying to do that, but we will make no, please go back to the Nisha. We will make no effort to clean the vernix caseosa. We are just mopping the baby dry so that he maintains his temperature. Then cut the cord after 1 to 3 minutes, and then put the baby to the breast within that 1 hour. The baby will crawl to the breast. He's opening his mouth already, and he will start having mother's milk. Keep the mother and baby covered and observe the baby's breathing and his color. So this is what we do for routine care. The first 1 hour, baby and mother are just together. Baby has been dried and baby has been clothed just with a cap and socks, and he is otherwise naked and is lying in skin to skin contact with his mother. Next, please. So the cord now, it should be kept clean and dry and free from any application. You don't have to apply anything on the cord. And babies should not be weighed immediately after they are born, because you don't want to separate the baby and the mother for 1 hour. So you're only going to take the birth weight after 1 hour. Okay, quickly you will take the birth weight. You will cover the weighing machine with a piece of cloth that has been previously warmed so that the baby doesn't get cold. And after that 1 hour, you will give the baby vitamin K injection, 1 milligram for babies who are weighing more than 1,000 grams, and 0.5 milligrams for babies who are weighing less than 1,000 grams. Next, please. Then it's very important to put an identification tag on the baby with the mother's name on the tag, and the hospital registration number, the date of birth, the gender. Very important to write the gender. And birth weight you will write only after 1 hour. So you will put the baby's identification tag there. Next, please. Then you have to examine the baby properly at birth. So after the baby is stabilized, even during that golden hour, you will keep peeping in to see whether the baby is breathing well, whether his color is pink or not, whether he is fine. After that, you can put him under a radiant warmer, and you can just examine the baby. So what will you examine? So you will look at the head and the face, you look at the fontanelle, you look for any congenital malformations, you quickly look at the eye, the mouth. You know that most of the congenital malformations occur in the midline. So you look for cleft palate, you look for central cyanosis, you look at the chest to see whether he is breathing well. You look at the child's color, whether it's pink or not. Then you will look for any abdominal distension. You will definitely palpate the femoral pulses. You look at the genitalia to look at any abnormalities there, congenital defects, undescended testes, ambiguous genitalia, position of the anus, and the appearance. And there's no need to put in a catheter to check whether the anus is patent or not. You can just separate the buttocks and see whether the anus is patent or not. Then you will turn the baby upside down and you look at the back to look for any midline defects there. Then the hips can be looked for developmental dysplasia, and you look at the legs, the lower limbs, to look at any talipes equina varus also. Next, please. So birth defects. So at the time of birth, soon after birth is the best time to look for birth defects, and we have to actively look for these birth defects as per the RBSK operational guidelines. And then you will register the same and refer the patient to the DEIC if required later on. Next, please. So here this is a beautiful chart. All of you must have seen this, where the RBSK has made all, has put in all pictures of possible congenital malformations, head and spine. You can see hydrocephalus, you can see a microcephaly, you can see anencephaly, you can see a big encephalocele, a meningomyelocele. Same with eyes, ears, mouth and lips, cleft lip, cleft palate, abnormalities of the ear, then abnormalities in this thing mouth, where you see cleft palate and a complex cleft palate. Then abdomen and anus, very important to look there to look for any abnormal ambiguous genitalia. Then you will look for any signs that show you that the baby is having Down syndrome, the facies, the simian crease, the gap between the toe and the big and the first toe and the big toe, so sandal gap. Then you look at the urinary tract, you may see a whole lot of portabelly and other problems. And also looking at the limbs, there might be limb defects, a whole lot of them. So you will note them all down. Yes. Next, please. So after doing this, you must communicate with the family. The family wants to know what is the weight of the baby, what is the gender. They are very excited about that. Be sure to show the attendants also what is the gender, and you tell them the condition of the baby, that the baby is all right and he's with his mother and he's having breast milk. And the identity tag you must also show them, and the gender especially you must show to the parents. But don't take the baby for a round all over the place. Just show him to maybe the father and then keep him back with his mother. Then it's very important to identify which of these babies that are delivered are at risk. So which are the babies that are at risk? Babies whose birth weight is less than 1800 grams. You know that this becomes an indication for admission of a baby in the SNCU. Babies whose gestation is less than 34 weeks. Babies with major congenital malformations. Babies with asphyxia, those that needed resuscitation care, those that needed positive pressure ventilation for more than a minute, or who needed chest compressions or medications during resuscitation. They are all at risk babies and they have to be admitted in the NICU. Then babies who have any breathing difficulty, babies who are born to Rh negative mothers. You know that babies who are born to Rh negative mothers, you have to send their cord blood and you have to keep a watch on when they are developing jaundice. You have to look at the findings of the cord blood. What is the blood group of the baby? What is the hemoglobin? What is the serum bilirubin in the cord blood? And also those babies that are born to mothers who have infections, who've been leaking PV for more than 24 hours, or those who've been running fever. Those babies are at increased risk of having early onset sepsis. So you must identify these, keep a watch on them, admit those who need to be admitted, and investigate those who need to be investigated. Next, please. So how do you care for babies in the postnatal ward? Normal delivery ho gayi, now the baby is roomed in with the mother. in the postnatal ward. So should we just leave the babies in the postnatal ward? No. We must visit these babies in the postnatal ward at least twice daily. And you should visit the baby when there is still daylight. It's no fun visiting the baby at 8 p.m. at night. So try to see the baby in natural sunlight, daylight, because you want to look especially at jaundice also. And jaundice you won't be able to really comment on in artificial light. So when you are going for the rounds and postnatal wards, you look at the cry, you see whether the baby is active, you ask the mother whether the mother is breastfeeding the baby, then whether the baby is maintaining temperature or not, whether he has any jaundice, and whether he's passed urine or meconium, because you know that babies must pass meconium within 24 hours. Then you also have to look for any danger signs in the baby. Next, please. Now the weight pattern in neonates. We all know that babies when they are born, they initially they lose weight and then they start gaining weight. So that a term baby, he loses about 5 to 10% of his birth weight during the first 2 to 3 days. And then he begins to start gaining weight, and he regains his birth weight by the end of the first week. But for preterm babies, they may experience 2 to 3% of weight loss daily to a maximum of 10 to 15%. So that a baby who is born with a birth weight of 2000 grams, he may be losing 20 grams every day initially. And then they will regain their birth weight by 10 to 14 days of life. So then we must assess feeding, and what are the simple questions that one can ask to assess whether the baby is feeding well. First of all, we must try to see how the mother is feeding the baby. You must actually watch the process of feeding, whether the position is okay, whether the attachment to the breast is okay. And then you ask simple questions. Is the baby passing urine adequately, which means at least 6 to 8 times in the day? Is that so? Is the baby gaining weight adequately? For a term baby, which would mean around 20 to 30 grams per day. If that is happening, then the baby is feeding adequately. And does he sleep peacefully between feeds? Next, please. So now we are talking about jaundice. So all infants must be examined in daylight for the development and severity of jaundice twice a day. Because if you don't do it twice a day, the level of jaundice may increase remarkably over 24 hours. So you may have seen a baby once today at 10 a.m. and then you feel now we've seen the baby once, there's no need to see him in the evening. And you see him only the next day. So by that time, the jaundice may have progressed to such an extent that it might be dangerous for the baby. And it's important that you look for jaundice in daylight. If you have the transcutaneous bilirubinometer, that can be used, because that can detect children neonates who are having significant amount of jaundice without giving them a prick. Then in this diagram, you can see that there are these several zones into which the baby can be divided, and depending upon zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the approximate levels of bilirubin can be noted. You can see if it's only on the face, it's 6, approximately 6. If it's on the chest, then 9. If it's on the lower abdomen, it's 12. If it's on the lower legs, then it could be 15. And if palms and soles are stained, then the level may be 18 to 20. And you need to do a serum bilirubin estimation to really know the exact level of bilirubin. Next, please. So there are certain common issues which keep happening in the postnatal ward. You know, the mother will come to you at 12 o'clock at night, vomiting. So most of the times this vomiting is only regurgitation. So spitting out of some amount of milk after a feed. It may be curdled milk. And it is usually because of faulty technique of feeding, where the baby is also taking in a lot of air. And so he keeps on vomiting out or regurgitating milk. So you have to give them proper feeding advice, that after feeding the baby should be kept on the shoulder and should be made to burp and then made to lie on his side. So, but not all vomiting is innocuous. If the baby is having persistent vomiting, if the baby is having projectile vomiting, if the color of the vomitus is green or blood stained, then it is something serious and must be investigated. Next, please. Another common problem is with the stool pattern. So we know, we've already discussed that the babies should pass meconium within 24 hours after birth, and they must pass urine within 48 hours of birth. Now, initially, the baby has transitional stools. So these transitional stools, they are greenish in color, and the mother may wonder why this green colored stool the baby is having. Is he having diarrhea? And after these transitional stools and the golden yellow sticky stools, which are characteristic of breastfed babies, appear. So the mother may say, every time I feed the baby, he passes some amount of stool. So you have to tell her that this is a normal phenomenon because of the gastrocolic reflex. When anything goes into the baby's stomach, then he passes stool. And some mothers may be very worried on the other side of it that my baby doesn't pass stool. It's been 2 days, he's not passed any stool. So if the abdomen is soft and otherwise the baby is happy, then this is okay. This is not constipation. Mother can be reassured that it's okay. The baby will pass stool on his own. Next, please. Another problem may be excessive crying. Now, excessive crying can be quite irritating to the JR1. When everybody else is taking a little nap, the poor JR1 is around, and 2 o'clock at night, the mother comes, मेरा baby तो बहुत रो रहा है ना? And then again after some time, the mother comes कि मेरा baby तो बहुत रो रहा है. So most of the times the babies are crying because they are hungry or because they are wet. But the baby may be crying, sometimes the baby may be crying because he is sick. So you have to learn to recognize the quality of the cry. If it's a shrill cry, the baby is crying excessively, it's a shrill cry, then you have to be concerned. Then it's not only this ki wet ho gaya, ki bhook lag rahi hai. There is some other reason. Maybe there is some infection. Okay, so we have to be careful. Maybe there is a diaper pin or something that is poking the baby, and that might be the reason why he is crying excessively. Next, please. Now this normal baby, he was there with us in the postnatal ward, and he was feeding well, and he was stable, and he'd passed urine, and everything was okay. The mother was keeping the baby close to her own skin, and so he was maintaining temperature, and he was breastfeeding every 2 to 3 hourly. But remember that we have to tell the mother that it doesn't have to be like timed. It is not that every 2 hours you have to feed. You have to feed the baby when the baby demands feed, and not when he starts crying. So if he's rooting, if he's opening his mouth and he's looking for the breast, those are cues, hunger cues. So the mother should feed the baby when she sees those hunger cues. Then all babies, they need to be supplemented with vitamin D, 400 IU. And at the time of discharge, you have to tell the mother that she doesn't have to apply anything on the umbilical cord. And when she's bathing the baby also, she has to bathe the baby in the normal way and then just dry mop the baby and quickly clothe the baby. Acha, sometimes, if you don't tell them to bathe the baby, they'll come to you and follow up, and the baby may be 2-3 months old, and she may tell you that, I don't know, if you ask, ki, bhai, tum nilati nahi ho, the baby is not looking so clean. So you say, no, you never told me to bathe the baby. So once the mother is at home and the baby is well, the baby should be bathed. So lukewarm water is the best, and the baby should be bathed in a warm room and quickly, within a few minutes, and then quickly dried, and then to be kept clothed and kept in close contact with the mother and breastfed. And the mother should be told not to apply any kajal or any antiseptic ointment in the eyes. Don't put any oil in the ears. And the BCG, OPV and hepatitis B should be given in the first 24 hours. So that is the advice that you will give to these mothers, and to maintain hygiene once they are at home. Hand washing especially must be taught to them. Next, please. Mothers must be told about the danger signs so that she knows to recognize when her baby is in trouble. So if the baby is not feeding well, if the baby develops jaundice within 24 hours of life, or if ever the palms and the soles are also colored yellow. We know that all babies, 80% of the babies may develop physiological jaundice. But jaundice which is appearing within 24 hours or which is staining the palms and the soles is pathological. Then if the baby is not passed any meconium in first 24 hours or hasn't passed urine in 48 hours, these are danger signs which the doctor must be aware of. If the baby is lethargic or if he's crying excessively or he's having respiratory difficulty, no, or he's having apneic episodes or cyanosis. So these are all danger signs that we should be aware of. Next, please. Then if he's bleeding from any side, if he is persistently vomiting green vomiters or blood-stained vomiters, if he is really having loose motions, okay, he is passing too many motions, several motions, large watery motions, the pattern of stooling has changed. Then if he is drooling saliva or choking during feeding, he may be having a tracheoesophageal fistula. If he is having seizures, or if there is evidence of superficial infections, something which may begin with just a superficial infection like conjunctivitis or pustules or umbilical sepsis, that if it is ignored can give rise to neonatal sepsis. So we must attend to these problems. Conjunctivitis, proper ophthalmic toilet, and putting antibiotic drops. Pustules have to be ruptured. If there are too many, then maybe oral antibiotics are required. Umbilical sepsis also, it has to be cleaned. The umbilicus has to be cleaned with spirit and betadine, and oral antibiotics are required. Next, please. So before you are sending a baby home, there is a checklist. Ideally, the infant should be discharged only after 48 hours, okay, and not quickly. These days, babies go home very quickly. That's not good. You will miss so many things that could be going wrong, especially jaundice is one thing. Then, when before discharge, you must see that the baby is free of any illness. Baby has been immunized. He is feeding at the breast properly. Mother is free from any significant illness and she is confident in taking care of the baby. And the mother and the baby and the mother has been apprised of the danger signs so that she knows when to quickly bring the baby home. Next, please. Not to the hospital from home if required. So for follow-up, newborns should be followed up in the Well Baby Clinic. And in the Well Baby Clinic, you will assess their growth and development. Growth would mean weight, head circumference, length. Development would be on the Trivandrum Developmental Score. You will have to see the development of the baby. You will have to see how the mother is feeding. You'll actually have to observe how she's feeding the baby on the breast. Then if the baby has any illness, it should be diagnosed and managed quickly. Parents should be told about hygiene, about hand washing, not to take the baby in crowded places, and they must be advised to follow the immunization schedule. Then hearing assessment should be done for all babies, and thyroid screening must also be done. And ROP screening is a must for preterm babies. Next, please. Okay. So that is all that I have to say about taking care of the normal newborn. The second half of the session is about thermal control. So we all know that management of neonates begins with a T. So TABC, we go on and on. So T is temperature. And temperature indeed is the first thing that must be looked at when we have a neonate at hand. And that's the first thing that needs to be managed before we start doing anything else with the baby. Next, please. Next, please. So, mechanisms of heat loss, we'll quickly revise. What is the concept of warm chain? How do we record the body temperature of a baby? How do we grade hypothermia? How do we prevent hypothermia? And how do we manage it? Then a word about fever and its management, and again some advice at discharge. Next, please. So neonatal hypothermia is a very important cause of death, of neonatal deaths. Neonatal hypothermia itself can increase the chances of a baby dying exponentially. It can lead to hypoglycemia, bleeding, pulmonary hemorrhage, acidosis, apnea, respiratory failure, shock, and eventually even death. So the chances of a baby dying, they are increased 3 times in case the baby has developed hypothermia. And the mortality risk increases by 80% for every 1 degree decrease of temperature. So that is the importance of hypothermia. So in case there is a hypothermic baby, we must take care of that baby immediately. Next, please. So why are babies so prone to develop hypothermia? One, they have a large surface area. Two, there is decreased thermal insulation because they have less of subcutaneous fat. They have reduced amount of brown fat in low birth weight babies, and they don't know how to shiver. When you and I feel cold, we shiver, and that is how we can maintain our temperature. But these babies, they lack shivering. So these are the things why these babies can develop. They are more prone to developing hypothermia. Next, please. So what are the mechanisms? How does a baby lose heat? So by evaporation, by conduction, by convection, and by radiation. Evaporation, the baby is wet and you don't dry the baby after the baby is born. So by evaporation, he'll lose heat. By conduction, you keep the newborn baby, you receive the baby in a steel tray that is cold or in linen which has not been pre-warmed. Then by conduction, the baby is going to lose heat. By convection, you've forgotten to switch off the fan, you've forgotten to close the window, the baby is delivered into a draft of air, so he'll become cold because of convection. Or by radiation, there are other things in the vicinity of the baby that are cold, and because of that, the baby, for example, the walls, the baby will also lose heat and become cold. Next, please. So this is a picture, you're very familiar with this picture, you've seen it often. By radiation, by convection, by evaporation, and by conduction, babies lose heat. Next, please. So now there is a concept of the warm chain. So there is a chain made up of 10 links, and this chain has to be maintained if we have to prevent hypothermia in a newborn. Number one, the delivery room must be warm. 26 to 28 degrees centigrade should be the temperature where the baby is born. Resuscitation should be warm. You have to pre-warm the radiant warmer before the baby is born and is put under it. You have to receive the baby in pre-warmed linen that has been kept under the radiant warmer, which has been put in the manual mode. Babies have to be dried immediately, and you have to remove the wet linen from there. Then baby has to be in skin to skin care with the mother. Breastfeeding is also an important part in this warm chain. And you don't have to bathe the baby, you don't have to weigh the baby immediately after delivery. Appropriate clothing has to be there, and the baby must be roomed in with the mother. If the baby is being transported from the delivery room with the mother to the other postnatal ward, then that transportation should be warm. Often there are long corridors through which the baby is taken, and there is a lot of draft of air and everything happening en route. Then awareness raising of healthcare providers. That means the people who are there in the delivery area, the ayahs, the ward boys, the nurses, everybody should be aware that the baby doesn't have to get cold, and we have to maintain the warm chain. Next, please. Okay. So how do we assess hypothermia? So we know that the normal temperature of a baby is 36.5 to 37.5 degrees centigrade. So if a baby's temperature is less than 36.5, the baby is hypothermic. If the temperature is up to 36, it's less than 36.5, but it's up to 36, then we say that the baby is in cold stress. A baby who's in cold stress, this is a cause of concern if we find that a baby is in cold stress, and we have to take steps to make this baby warm. And the best way to do it is skin to skin care with the mother, or KMC like position. But if the baby's temperature is less than 32 degree centigrade, we say that the baby is in severe hypothermia. Now this is a very grave situation, and the chances of these babies dying is very high. So we have to take special care of these babies. Then in between is moderate hypothermia, and those babies are also in danger of becoming more sick, and these babies also need to be put under the radiant warmer and monitored. Next, please. So how do you record the temperature of a baby? So the easiest way to do it is by using a digital thermometer, and digital thermometer is put in the axilla. And I'm sorry, I forgot to put a picture here. That thermometer has to be put in a vertical way. It doesn't have to be put horizontally, so that it is lying along the chest and the arm of the baby, and not the tip of the thermometer should not be poking out towards the back. It should be in the roof of the axilla. Then skin temperature can be taken by keeping the baby under the radiant warmer and putting the thermistor in the right upper abdomen. And the third way is to touch the baby and assess, make a guess about the baby's, an estimate, I should say, of the baby's temperature. Next, please. So when you are touching the baby and trying to assess the temperature, then a baby whose temperature is maintained, his feet are warm and pink. A baby whose feet are cold, you just put the dorsum of your hand and you feel the baby's feet, and you feel that the feet are cold. Now you put the dorsum of your hand on the abdomen and you feel now, oh, the abdomen is warm. So such a baby is in cold stress. And this baby also needs attention. Skin to skin care with the mother may be okay. Now there may be a third situation when the feet are cold and the abdomen is also cold. So this baby is having moderate to severe hypothermia, and you have to act fast to take care of this baby. Next, please. So a hypothermic baby may become lethargic, may be irritable, may not be feeding, may not be gaining weight. He has been hypothermic for a long time. He's been brought to you maybe from home. And the reason why he is not gaining weight might just be this, that the mother is not keeping the baby warm. Or he may have breathing difficulty. And in patients who have severe hypothermia, they may have hypoglycemia and all the symptoms of hypoglycemia. They may develop sclerema, which is indurated skin. They may develop disseminated intravascular coagulation, and they may even bleed. So the child whose only problem is hypothermia may be looking like one who has severe sepsis. Now, all these things can happen just because of hypothermia, and we should be aware of this. Next, please. So then, what should we do to prevent it? So routine care. Prevention begins with routine care. So warm, preventing heat loss at the time of birth. We've already talked about it. Dry the baby quickly with a pre-warmed cloth. Then put the baby in skin to skin contact with the mother, and cover the baby and mother with a sheet, and put a little cap on the baby's head, and maybe mittens and socks, and begin to feed the baby. So when the baby and mother will be close to each other, then the baby will be warm. Next, please. Then kangaroo mother care. So what are the advantages of kangaroo mother care? Better thermal protection, definitely. Increases milk production, increases exclusive breastfeeding rates, reduces respiratory tract and nosocomial infections, because the baby is so close to the mother, nobody is touching the baby. So the chances of infecting the baby are reduced. And it improves weight gain, it improves length gain and head circumference gain in the baby, means growth of the baby. It improves emotional bonding between the mother and baby. It reduces hospital stay. It reduces the risk of mortality, and it even improves long-term neurodevelopment. So these are the benefits of KMC. Next, please. So if the baby is having mild hypothermia, means instead of 36.5, it has become 35.5. It's between this. So what do we do? KMC is enough. The preferred method would be KMC. Keep the baby's room temperature between 26 and 28. You can use a radiant heater or any other heating device which is not facing towards the baby, and you cover the baby appropriately, especially the head. The surface area is large, and the feet and the hands, they must be all covered well. Continue breastfeeding the baby. Monitor the axillary temperature of such a baby who is having mild hypothermia every half an hour till it reaches 36.5. And after that, just don't forget about things. Hourly, you will have to monitor the temperature for 4 hours, and then every 2 hourly for the next 12 hours, and thereafter 3 hourly. So if the baby remains hypothermic despite KMC, 1 hour after supervised KMC, or if you find some other danger signs, then sepsis should be treated. Maybe the child has developed hypothermia because of sepsis, and don't just keep continuing with the KMC. Thank you. Next, please. So wrapping a baby. So wrapping a baby properly is an art. So we should know it, and we should teach the mothers or the attendants how to wrap a baby properly. So here, see how nicely the baby is covered. They're having a cap, they're covered in a blanket, and just the face is visible. And usually they'll be coming for follow-up from far and wide. So if you don't tell them how to wrap the baby properly, then the baby will fall sick just because he came to you while traveling. So this is how the babies need to be clad. And often, the mothers feel that it's so hot. So the baby is feeling very hot. So I just make the baby wear a little vest. Oh, he sweats so much. So that's just not correct. So always tell the parent, the mother, that the baby must be wearing one layer of clothes more than what you are wearing. The mother will be wearing at least one layer. So baby must be wearing at least 2 layers throughout the 12 months in the year, and additional clothes as required. Next, please. Next, please. So how do you wrap the baby? So this blanket, the red blanket that you see, so this is the correct way of wrapping the baby, and you have to teach the mother how to do this, so that the feet are inside, the hands are inside, and there's a little cap also made out of the sheet in which the mother is going to wrap the baby. So usually mothers carry a very small towel. So that is not enough, because that towel cannot be wrapped around the baby like this. Next, please. So if there is significant hypothermia, then what should we do? All the baby, let's say, is coming from home. So you remove all the clothes, wet clothes, cold clothes, and place the naked baby under the radiant warmer with a cap and socks and mittens which have been pre-warmed if possible, and monitor the temperature and other vitals of the baby every 15 to 30 minutes. If you make the baby wear clothes and put him under a radiant warmer, he will not be able to gain any temperature. So he has to be naked. Once he is stable, then he can be clothed. And when you see that the heater output is now 0, then you can clothe the baby and stop the warmer. Yes, next please. So there are certain additional steps that are also important. You have to continue with breastfeeding. If the baby cannot breastfeed, you will give him EBM through a Paliday or with gavage. In case the baby is not tolerating feeds, then you have to begin with IV fluids, because you don't want the baby to become hypoglycemic. If the baby's perfusion is poor, then you will have to give him saline, a bolus 10 ml per kg, and over 30 minutes. And you will have to give an injection of vitamin K, because these babies are more prone to bleed, and provide oxygen and monitor the saturation. So you have to do everything that you usually do for supportive care for these babies. Now there might be a baby who has a fever. Fever means the temperature is more than 37.5 degrees. And the most common cause is environment is too hot. Okay, it's very hot, but 1 minute please. The previous slide. The previous slide please. So the most common reason why the babies get fever is because the environment is too hot and the baby is overdressed. So, or maybe the baby is kept too close to the heater. Or sometimes the reason might not be the environment, but it may be actually sickness. The baby may be having sepsis. Next, please. So if you think that it is environmental temperature which is affecting the baby's temperature, then you have to move the baby to a little colder environment, remove extra clothing, remove the source of heat. But if the temperature is above 39 degrees, you will have centigrade, you will sponge the baby with tepid water Continue to breastfeed the baby. If he can't breastfeed, then you feed him with express milk, with a katori spoon or with gavage. And if the baby is not tolerating feeds, again you will have to give him IV fluids. And keep measuring the temperature hourly till it becomes normal. Next, please. So hypothermic babies who are hypothermic because of infection, they need to be worked up. Actually having infection and it's not the environment that is making him have fever, he will be lethargic. He would be crying excessively. He could be throwing a seizure. He may not be feeding. He could be vomiting. There could be respiratory distress, apneic attacks, cyanosis. Or he may be bleeding from somewhere. There may be pustules as an evidence of infection, or there might be umbilical sepsis. Next, please. So the discharge advice and follow-up will be that at home ensure that the baby is adequately covered, but do not cover him, do not overdress him, continue breastfeeding, extra care of low birth weight babies has to be taken, continue with skin to skin contact even at home, room the baby in with the mother, keep the baby and mother in a warm room, and the clothing should be at least 2 or 3 layers of clothing and something to wrap the baby in on top of that, and feet should be covered with socks and hands with mittens and the head with a cap. Next, please. So that's the end of it. Are there any questions? We'll be happy to take questions. That's all from my side. Thank you all.
Yeah, any questions, Ankita, in the box, in the delegates box?
No.
Let me check. Just let me check once.
Okay.
There are no such as questions by the attendants, ma'am, and there were total about 100 attendants with us, ma'am.
Okay. So then I think it was a session in which there was no interaction. So I think in the future, the residents must be interactive. They should be ready to ask questions. They should be ready to answer questions which are being asked, because just talking to the computer screen is no fun. Okay.
Yeah, residents, please, use the opportunity to interact. The students from UP, MP, Chhattisgarh, and Telangana. So do ask your colleagues to join. You can type in the chat box. There is nothing wrong or right. You must have joined the pediatrics right now, na? First year postgraduates. So
Yeah.
abhi join kiya hai, and
They're
you should
into it
interact
for
and ask.
more than 6 months or so now.
Ah.
And they are well versed with what's going on. I don't know why, like they're not so shy and timid anymore. But somehow, I don't know, maybe they are busy with their work or whatever. But you knew from
Yeah.
before that you have to spare just 1 hour for this interactive session. So next time, maybe
Yeah.
Friday, you will be in a better mood to interact.
Thank you so much, Mala ma'am. Thank you so much for sparing time.
Welcome. Most
Yeah,
welcome.
thank
Bye bye. Thank you. Thank you, Pratima.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So
And
with all your
Dr. Krish.
permission, can we end the session over here, ma'am?
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, Ankita.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye.